The rain came down in sheets, blurring the neon lights of Chicago's Magnificent Mile into a kaleidoscope of color. Ezra Cole stood under the awning of a coffee shop, his breath visible in the chilly autumn air, watching the man he'd loved for nearly a decade disappear into the crowd. 9 years of stolen glances, secret letters, and promises whispered in the dark and still. Marcus Kane was a stranger to the world they shared. Ezra's heart pounded as he clutched the damp envelope in his pocket. The one Marcus had slipped him an hour ago in the chaos of the street market. The note inside was simple, scrawled in Marcus's familiar, hurried script, "Meet me at the old bookstore. 8 p.m. I'm ready." Ready for what? Ezra didn't dare hope. Not after years of Marcus choosing safety over truth, his marriage over their love. But the words burned in his mind, pulling him through the rain-soaked streets toward the only place they'd ever called theirs. The bookstore, tucked between a laundromat and a jazz club in Wicker Park, was a relic of their past. Its faded sign, pages and promises, flickered in the storm. Ezra pushed open the door, the bell jingling softly, and there he was, Marcus, leaning against a shelf of poetry, his dark eyes catching the dim light like they held the weight of the world. He wore a navy coat, too formal for the gritty neighborhood, and his wedding band glinted as he ran a hand through his damp curls. Ezra's chest tightened. 9 years, and Marcus still stole his breath. "You came," Marcus said, his voice low, almost drowned by the rain pattering against the windows. He stepped closer, close enough for Ezra to smell the cedarwood cologne that haunted his dreams. "I wasn't sure you would." Ezra forced a laugh, bitter and sharp. 9 years. Marcus, I've never not shown up for you." He wanted to be angry, to demand why now, why tonight, but the vulnerability in Marcus's eyes stopped him cold. Something was different. Something was wrong. "I left her," Marcus said, the words tumbling out like they'd been caged too long. "I told Lena everything. About us. About who I am." His voice cracked, and he looked away, his jaw tight. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just looked at me like I'd shattered her world. Ezra's breath caught. Lena, Marcus's wife of 7 years, the woman who'd unknowingly stood between them, was a ghost in their story, always present, never seen. He'd imagined her as a villain, a barrier. But now, hearing the pain in Marcus's voice, she felt human. Too human. "What did she say?" Ezra asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Marcus swallowed hard, his fingers twitching like he wanted to reach out but didn't trust himself. "She said she always knew. Not about you, but about me. She said she saw it in the way I looked at the world, like I was hiding something even from myself." He laughed, a hollow sound. "She's not wrong." Ezra's mind raced. 9 years ago, they'd met in a community theater group, 2 young men in their 20s, both running from something. Ezra, a black artist escaping a small-town past that didn't understand him, and Marcus, a Latino law student torn between his family's expectations and his truth. Their connection had been instant. Electrica's shared laugh over a botched audition, a late-night talk that turned into a kiss, then a secret that defined them. But Marcus had chosen a different path, a wife, a house in the suburbs, a life that looked perfect on paper. Ezra had stayed in the city, painting murals and writing poetry, waiting for a man who might never choose him. "Why now?" Ezra asked, stepping closer, the worn floorboards creaking under his boots. "Why tell her now?" Marcus's eyes met his, raw and unguarded. "Because I'm tired, Ezra. Tired of lying. Tired of pretending I don't wake up every day thinking about you." He paused, his voice dropping to a whisper. And because of the kids. Ezra froze. Kids. Marcus and Lena had 12 boy. Mateo, 6. And a girl. Sophia, 3. Ezra had seen their photos on Marcus's phone, their smiles bright and oblivious. He'd never let himself think too hard about them. It hurt too much. What about them? Ezra asked, dread pooling in his stomach. Marcus's face crumpled, and for the first time, Ezra saw fear in him. Not the fear of being caught, but something deeper. Lena's sick, he said. Really sick. She might not make it through the year. The words hit like a punch, stealing the air from the room. Ezra stumbled back, leaning against a shelf, the smell of old books grounding him. What do you mean? Sick? Cancer, Marcus said, his voice breaking. Stage 4. She told me last month, and 2 couldn't keep lying to her after that. Not when she's fighting for every day. He wiped his eyes, his hands shaking. She asked me to raise them. Ezra, Mateo and Sophia. She begged me to be their father, no matter what happens to her. And I said yes. Ezra's world tilted. He'd spent years loving Marcus from the shadows, dreaming of a day they could be together without secrets. But this was a weight he hadn't imagined. And what about us? He asked, his voice raw. Where do I fit in this? Marcus stepped forward, closing the distance between them. His hand grazed Ezra's, tentative, like he was afraid Ezra would pull away. I want you in my life, he said. Not hidden. Not anymore. But I need you to understand what I'm taking on. What we'd be taking on. Ezra's heart raced, torn between hope and fear. He looked into Marcus's eyes, searching for the man he'd loved through every stolen moment. Could he do this? Could he step into a life that wasn't just theirs, but theirs and Lena's and 2 children who didn't even know him? The rain outside slowed to a drizzle, and the bookstore felt impossibly small, the walls closing in with the weight of Marcus's words. Ezra didn't know if he was ready, but he knew one thing. He wasn't walking away. Not tonight. Not ever. Ezra stood frozen in the bookstore, Marcus's hand still brushing against his, the warmth of it grounding him in a moment that felt like it could shatter. The rain had softened, but the air inside Pages and Promises was thick with the weight of what Marcus had just confessed. Lena's illness, the children, the promise to raise Thimmet was a life Ezra had never pictured. Not in all the years he'd loved Marcus from a distance. You're asking me to be part of this, Ezra said, his voice low, almost accusatory. To step into a family that's not mine. To what? Play house with you and your kids while Lena. He stopped. The word dies too heavy to say aloud. Marcus flinched, his hand dropping to his side. I'm not asking you to play anything, he said. I'm asking you to be with me. Really be with me. No more hiding. His eyes were pleading, but there was a fire in them too, a determination Ezra hadn't seen before. I know it's a lot. I know it's unfair. But I can't do this without you. Ezra turned away, pacing toward a shelf lined with worn paperbacks. His fingers trailed over the spines, seeking something solid in the chaos of his thoughts. He'd spent years building a life alone, painting murals across Chicago, teaching art to kids in community centers, carving out a space where he could be himself, unapologetically. But Marcus had always been the piece that didn't fit, the ache that never faded. And now, this. Tell me about her, Ezra said suddenly, turning back to Marcus. Lena. What's she like? Marcus blinked, caught off guard. He leaned against the counter, his shoulders sagging. She's strong, he said after a moment. Fiercer than anyone I know. She's a pediatric nurse, always putting others first. Even now, with the chemo, she's more worried about Mateo and Sophia than herself. He smiled faintly. A sad, private thing. She loves old jazz records and burns every recipe she tries. She's good. Ezra. Better than I deserve. Ezra's chest tightened. He'd wanted to hate Lena, to see her as the wall between him and Marcus. But hearing this, he couldn't. She wasn't the enemy, she was a woman fighting for her life, for her children. And Marcus, for all his flaws, loved her in his own way. That truth stung more than Ezra expected. And the kids? He asked, softer now. What are they like? Marcus's face lit up, despite the pain in his eyes. Mateo's a dreamer. He's always drawing, making up stories about dragons and spaceships. He's shy, but when he trusts you, he doesn't stop talking. He laughed, a real one this time. Sophia's the opposite. She's fearless, climbs everything, demands attention. She's got Lena's smile. Ezra tried to picture them, these two kids who were now part of the equation. He'd never wanted children, not because he didn't like them, but because his life felt too unsteady, too full of sharp edges. But the way Marcus spoke about them, with such raw love, made something shift inside him. I need time, Ezra said finally, his voice steady but firm. This isn't just about us anymore. It's bigger than that. Marcus nodded, his expression a mix of hope and fear. I know. But I'm not going anywhere. Not this time. They stood in silence for a moment, the bookstore's quiet hum wrapping around them. Then Marcus reached into his coat and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. Lena wrote this, he said, holding it out. For you. Ezra's heart stuttered. For me. She knows about you, Marcus said. Not everything, but enough. She wanted you to have this. Ezra took the paper, his fingers trembling. He didn't open it. Not yet. It felt too heavy, like it held answers to questions he wasn't ready to ask. Instead, he slipped it into his pocket, next to Marcus's earlier note, and looked at the man he'd loved for so long. I'll read it, he said. But not here. Not now. Marcus nodded, his eyes searching Ezra's face. Can I see you tomorrow? Just to talk. Ezra hesitated, then nodded. Yeah. Tomorrow. They parted ways outside the bookstore, Marcus disappearing into the drizzle, his navy coat blending into the night. Ezra stood under the flickering sign, the weight of the letters in his pocket pressing against him. He walked home through the wet streets, the city alive with soundscar horns, laughter from a bar, the distant wail of a siren. Chicago was his home, but tonight it felt like a stranger. In his small apartment above a taco shop in Pilsen, Ezra sat on his couch, the letter from Lena in his hands. He stared at it for a long time, the paper worn at the edges, as if Lena had held it too long before giving it to Marcus. Finally, he unfolded it. Ezra, I don't know you, but I know you're important to Marcus. He's never said your name, but I've seen it in his eyes, the way he drifts sometimes, like he's somewhere else. I'm not angry. I'm not even hurt anymore. I just want my children to be loved, to be safe. Marcus says you're a good man. I believe him. If you're reading this, it means he's chosen you, and I'm asking you not for me, but for Mateo and Sofia to help him be the father they need. I don't have much time. Please, don't hate me for what I'm leaving behind. Lena. Ezra's vision blurred, tears falling onto the page. He didn't know this woman, but her words cut through him, raw and honest. She wasn't asking for forgiveness or pity. She was asking for her children's future. And somehow, impossibly, she was asking him. He set the letter down and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. The city hummed outside, but inside, his world was shifting, reshaping into something he couldn't yet name. He thought of Marcus, of Matteo and Sophia, of a life he'd never planned for. And for the first time in 9 years, he felt the weight of hope fragile, terrifying, and real. Ezra didn't sleep that night. Lena's letter lay open on his coffee table, its words seared into his mind like a painting he couldn't unsee. By dawn, the Chicago skyline was a silhouette against a gray sky, and Ezra was already out the door, heading to the community center where he taught art to kids. He needed the chaos of paint and laughter to drown out the storm in his head. The center, a converted warehouse in Logan Square, buzzed with energy. Kids darted between easels, their hands smeared with color, their voices a cacophony of joy and argument. Ezra usually thrived here, guiding young artists to find their voice on canvas. But today, he was distracted, his eyes drifting to the window where the city stretched out, vast and indifferent. "Mr. Ezra, you okay?" asked Jamal, a lanky 12-year-old with a knack for bold abstracts. He held a paintbrush like a weapon, his brow furrowed. Ezra forced a smile. "Yeah, kid. Just thinking too much." Jamal snorted. "Grown-ups always think too much. Just paint it out, man." If only it were that simple. Ezra handed Jamal a fresh canvas and turned to help a younger girl with her sketch. But his mind was elsewhere in Marcus, on Lena, on two kids he'd never met, but who were starting to feel real. He wondered what Matteo's drawings looked like, if Sophia's fearless spirit would shine in a place like this. By noon, Ezra's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, coffee shop on Division Street. 2 p.m. Ezra stared at the message, his thumb hovering over the reply. He typed OK and hit send before he could overthink it. The coffee shop was a cozy spot with exposed brick walls and the smell of roasted beans. Marcus was already there, sitting by the window, his hands wrapped around a mug. He looked tired, his eyes shadowed, but he smiled when he saw Ezra's small, genuine smile that made Ezra's heart ache. "Thanks for coming," Marcus said as Ezra slid into the seat across from him. "I wasn't sure you would after last night." Ezra shrugged, his leather jacket creaking. "I said I'd show up. I meant it." He ordered a black coffee, needing something bitter to ground him. "So, what now? You've told Lena. You've got the kids. Where do we go from here?" Marcus leaned forward, his voice low. "I want you to meet them. Matteo and Sophia. Not right away, but soon. I want them to know you, Ezra. Not as some secret, but as part of us." Ezra's stomach twisted. "You're moving fast," he said, trying to keep his tone light. "Yesterday, we were sneaking notes. Now you want me to play stepdad?" Marcus's face fell, and Ezra regretted his words instantly. "I'm sorry," Marcus said. "I know I'm asking too much, too soon. But Lena's getting worse, and I'm trying to figure out how to hold everything together." Ezra reached across the table, his hand brushing Marcus's. "I'm not saying no," he said softly. "I'm just scared. I don't know how to do this. I've never even met your kids." Marcus turned his hand over, lacing their fingers together. The touch was bold, public, and it sent a thrill through Ezra. "I'm scared too," Marcus admitted. "But I've spent 9 years being afraid of who I am. I don't want to do that anymore. Not with you." The coffee shop faded away, the clatter of cups and chatter of strangers blurring into nothing. For a moment, it was just them, Ezra and Marcus, Two men who'd loved each other through years of silence, now daring to imagine something more. Okay, Ezra said finally. I'll meet them. But we do this slow. Marcus. For their sake. Not just ours. Marcus nodded, relief flooding his face. Slow. I promise. They spent the next hour talking, not about the future, but about the small things. Ezra's latest mural, Marcus's attempt to cook for the kids, and burning the rice. It felt normal, almost, like they were any couple catching up. But the weight of Lena's letter lingered in Ezra's pocket, a reminder that normal wasn't their story. That evening, Ezra went to the lakefront, where the city's lights reflected on Lake Michigan like scattered stars. He sat on a bench, watching joggers and dog walkers, and pulled out Lena's letter again. He read it twice, each word sinking deeper. She wasn't asking him to replace her, she was asking him to love her children. To love Marcus. To be part of something bigger than himself. He thought of his own childhood, growing up in a small Illinois town where being black and queer meant learning to hide early. His parents had loved him, but they hadn't understood him. Not fully. He'd left at 18, chasing freedom in Chicago, and found it in art, in community, in Marcus. But freedom came with loneliness, and he wondered if he was ready to trade it for something as heavy as family. His phone buzzed again, a photo from Marcus. It was Mateo and Sophia, sitting on a living room floor covered in crayons and paper. Mateo was focused, his tongue sticking out as he drew a lopsided dragon. Sophia was grinning, holding up a scribbled picture of what might have been a cat. Marcus's message read, "They're asking for a bedtime story. Any ideas?" Ezra smiled, his chest warm despite the cool lake breeze. He typed back, "Tell them about a dragon who learns to fly." Then he stood, tucking the phone away, and started walking home. The city felt different tonight, less like a stranger and more like a place where he could belong. The next week passed in a blur of small steps and seismic shifts. Ezra and Marcus met daily, stealing moments between Marcus's law firm job and Ezra's art classes. They didn't talk about Lena's illness or the kids every time. Sometimes it was just coffee or a walk through Millennium Park, their shoulders brushing as they navigated the crowds. But the weight of what was coming loomed, unspoken, in every glance. Ezra was painting a mural in Humboldt Park, a vibrant scene of community families, musicians, kids playing when Marcus texted him, "Can you come to the house this weekend? Lena wants to meet you." The words stopped Ezra mid-stroke, paint dripping from his brush onto the scaffold. Lena, the woman who'd written the letter, who'd known about him without knowing him. He typed back a simple yes, his heart racing with a mix of dread and curiosity. Saturday morning, Ezra stood outside a modest brick house in Evanston, just north of Chicago. The lawn was tidy, with a tricycle tipped over near the porch, and a basketball hoop hung above the garage. It was a family home, the kind Ezra had never imagined stepping into. He adjusted his jacket, smoothed his hair, and knocked. Marcus opened the door, looking more nervous than Ezra had ever seen him. "You're here," he said, relief in his voice. "Come in." The house smelled of lavender and something baking cookies. Maybe. Toys were scattered across the living room, and a jazz record played softly in the background. Ezra's eyes landed on a photo on the mantel. Marcus, Lena, Mateo, and Sophia, all smiling at a beach, the kids holding ice cream cones. His chest tightened. This was their life, and he was an outsider stepping in. Ezra. A woman's voice, soft but steady, pulled him from his thoughts. Lena stood in the doorway to the kitchen, her frame slight, her head wrapped in a colorful scarf. Her eyes were sharp, though, and they studied him with an intensity that made him feel exposed. "Hi," Ezra said, his voice catching. I'm Ezra. I know, Lena said, a small smile breaking through. Thank you for coming. She gestured to the couch. Sit. The kids are upstairs, but they'll be down soon. Ezra sat, feeling like he was on trial. Marcus hovered nearby, his hands in his pockets, watching them both. Lena settled into an armchair, moving carefully, like every motion cost her something. She was beautiful, even now high cheekbones, warm brown skin, a quiet strength that made Ezra understand why Marcus had stayed so long. I read your letter, Ezra said, breaking the silence. It meant a lot. Lena nodded, her smile fading. I wasn't sure you'd come after that. Most people would run the other way. Ezra laughed, a nervous sound. I thought about it. She leaned forward, her hands clasped. I don't know what Marcus has told you about me, about us. But I need you to know I don't hate you. I don't even blame you. Her voice was steady, but there was a tremor beneath it. I just want my kids to have a family when I'm gone. And Marcus, he loves you. I see it now, clearer than ever. Ezra's throat tightened. He glanced at Marcus, who looked away, his jaw tight. I don't know how to do this, Ezra admitted. I'm not good at families. Lena's laugh was soft, almost musical. No one is, at first. But you're here. That's a start. Before Ezra could respond, the sound of footsteps thundered down the stairs. Mateo burst into the room, a lanky boy with Marcus's curls and a shy smile, clutching a sketchbook. Sophia followed, her pigtails bouncing, her eyes bright with curiosity. Who's that? Sophia demanded, pointing at Ezra. Marcus knelt beside her, his voice gentle. This is Ezra. He's a friend. He's really good at drawing, like Mateo. Mateo's eyes lit up. You draw? He asked, holding out his sketchbook like an offering. Ezra nodded, taking it carefully. The pages were filled with dragons, spaceships, and fantastical landscapes, drawn with a skill that surprised him. These are amazing, he said, meaning it. You've got a real talent. Mateo beamed, and Sophia tugged at Ezra's sleeve. I draw too. Want to see? For the next hour, Ezra sat on the floor with the kids, sketching alongside them. Mateo was quiet, focused, but warmed up when Ezra praised his work. Sophia was a whirlwind, demanding Ezra draw her a unicorn, then critiquing his horn shape with brutal honesty. Marcus watched from the couch, his expression soft, while Lena observed from her chair, her eyes glistening. When it was time to leave, Lena walked Ezra to the door. They like you, she said quietly. That's more than I hoped for. Ezra met her gaze, seeing the weight she carried. I'll try, he said. For them. For Marcus. She nodded, her hand resting briefly on his arm. That's all I ask. Outside, the air was crisp, the leaves crunching under Ezra's boots. Marcus followed him to the sidewalk, his hands stuffed in his coat. You okay? He asked. Ezra exhaled, his breath visible in the cold. I don't know. But I'm not running. Marcus smiled, a real one, and for a moment, they stood there, the space between them shrinking. Ezra wanted to reach for him, to close the gap, but the kids' laughter still echoed in his ears. This wasn't just about them anymore. Winter settled over Chicago like a heavy blanket, the city glittering under a layer of snow. Ezra and Marcus fell into a fragile rhythm dinners at the Evanston house. Evenings with Mateo and Sophia. Moments stolen in Marcus's car where they could be just them. hands clasped, breaths mingling. But Lena's presence lingered, not as a barrier now, but as a quiet force binding them all. Ezra started spending weekends at the house, helping with small things, fixing a leaky faucet, reading bedtime stories. Mateo began showing him every new drawing, and Sophia insisted Ezra braid her hair, giggling when he fumbled. It was strange, this dance of becoming part of a family, but it felt right, like a painting slowly taking shape. One snowy evening, Ezra arrived to find Lena in the kitchen, stirring a pot of soup. She looked frilier, her movements slower, but her smile was warm. "Join us for dinner?" she asked. Ezra nodded, taking a seat at the table where Marcus was helping Mateo with homework. Sophia was coloring, her tongue sticking out in concentration. The scene was so domestic, so ordinary, that Ezra felt a pang of guilt for how much he wanted it. Dinner was quiet, the clink of spoons and Sophia's chatter filling the space. Afterward, Lena asked Ezra to stay as Marcus took the kids upstairs. They sat in the living room, the jazz record playing low, and Lena handed him a photo album. "I want you to see them," she said. Who they were before all this. The album was a chronicle of their lives, Marcus and Lena at their wedding, young and radiant. Mateo as a chubby toddler, covered in cake. Sophia's first steps, captured mid-wobble. Ezra's fingers lingered on a photo of Marcus holding both kids, his smile wide and unguarded. He looked happy, whole. "You gave him that," Lena said, watching him. "Not me. I see it now, the way he lights up with you. I couldn't give him that." Ezra closed the album, his throat tight. "You gave him a family," he said. "That's more than I ever could." Lena shook her head. "Don't do that. Don't make me the saint and you the outsider. You're part of this now, Ezra, whether you're ready or not." Her words stayed with him as he left, the snow crunching under his boots. Marcus caught up to him outside, his breath fogging in the cold. "What did she say?" he asked, worry creasing his brow. "She's letting me in," Ezra said, struggling to explain. "She's giving me a place here." Marcus's eyes softened. He stepped closer, his hand finding Ezra's. "You've always had a place with me." They kissed, slow and deliberate, the snow falling around them. It was their first kiss in weeks, and it felt like a promise one Ezra wasn't sure he could keep, but one he wanted to try. The next month was a whirlwind. Lena's condition worsened, and Marcus leaned on Ezra more, asking him to pick up the kids from school or stay over when Lena had hospital visits. Ezra did it without question, but the weight of it grew. He was falling in love with this family, but he was also terrified of what it meant to lose Lena, to step into her shoes. One night, after the kids were asleep, Marcus and Ezra sat on the couch, a bottle of wine between them. Marcus was quiet, his eyes distant. "She's not getting better," he said finally. "The doctors say maybe a month, maybe less." Ezra reached for his hand, squeezing it. "I'm here," he said. "Whatever you need." Marcus looked at him, his eyes wet. "I need you to stay. Not just for now, but after." Ezra's heart pounded. "I'm trying," he said. "I want to. But it's a lot. Marcus, I'm not her. I'm not you. I'm just me." "That's enough," Marcus said, his voice fierce. "You're enough." They sat in silence, the wine untouched, the future looming. Ezra thought of Lena's letter, of her plea for her children. He thought of Mateo's drawings, Sophia's laugh, Marcus's hand in his. And he realized he wasn't just staying for Marcus anymore, was staying for all of them. Spring came to Chicago, but it brought no renewal. Lena's time was slipping away, and the house in Evanston felt like it was holding its breath. Ezra was there almost every day now. No longer a guest, but a fixture, helping with homework, cooking dinners, tucking the kids into bed. Mateo started calling him Easy, and Sophia made him a lopsided friendship bracelet that he wore proudly. But every moment of joy was shadowed by Lena's fading strength. One afternoon, Ezra found Lena in the backyard, sitting in a chair under a budding cherry tree. She was wrapped in a blanket, her face pale but peaceful. "Sit with me," she said, patting the chair beside her. Ezra sat, the grass damp under his boots. The air smelled of earth and new growth, a cruel contrast to the woman beside him. "How are you feeling?" he asked, hating how small the question sounded. "Like I'm running out of time," Lena said, her voice steady. "But I'm not scared anymore. Not for me." She looked at him, her eyes piercing. "I'm scared for them. For Marcus. For you." Ezra swallowed hard. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. "I promised you that." Lena nodded, her gaze drifting to the tree. "When I married Marcus, I thought we'd have forever. I didn't know about him, about you. But I'm glad I know now. It makes it easier, somehow, knowing he won't be alone." Ezra's chest ached. He wanted to tell her she was wrong, that Marcus would always carry her, but the words felt hollow. Instead, he said, "You've built something beautiful here. I'm just trying not to mess it up." She laughed, a weak but genuine sound. "You won't. You love them. I see it." They sat in silence, watching the petals fall. When Lena spoke again, her voice was softer. "Tell them about me, Ezra. When I'm gone. Tell them I love them, even when I wasn't perfect." "I will," he promised, his voice breaking. Lena passed 2 weeks later, in the quiet of a hospital room. Marcus was there, holding her hand, and Ezra stayed with the kids, keeping them distracted with stories and games. When Marcus came home, his face was hollow, but he hugged Ezra so tightly it hurt. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything." The funeral was small, held in a church near the lake. Mateo clung to Marcus's hand, and Sophia curled up in Ezra's lap, her small body shaking. Ezra held her close, his own tears falling silently. He looked at Marcus, standing tall but broken, and knew this was their new beginning, as painful as it was. In the weeks that followed, Ezra moved into the house. It wasn't planned, just a slow accumulation of his things, his paints, his clothes, his life merging with theirs. The kids adjusted, sometimes asking for Lena, sometimes laughing like nothing had changed. Marcus was quieter, grieving in private, but he leaned on Ezra in a way that felt like trust. One night, after the kids were asleep, Marcus and Ezra sat on the porch. The cities hummed distant. Marcus took Ezra's hand, his thumb tracing circles. "I love you," he said, the words simple but heavy. "I've always loved you." Ezra's heart swelled. "I love you too," he said, and for the first time, it felt like enough. They kissed under the stars, the weight of 9 years lifting, if only for a moment. Ezra knew it wouldn't be easy raising Mateo and Sophia, navigating grief, building a life from the ashes of loss. But he was here, and he was staying. A year later, the Evanston house was alive with color. Ezra had painted a mural on the living room wall, a dragon soaring over a city, with Mateo and Sophia's names hidden in the clouds. The kids loved it, pointing out new details every day. Life wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, stitched together with love and effort. Mateo was thriving in school, his sketchbook always full, and Sophia had taken up soccer, her energy boundless. Marcus had cut back his hours at the law firm, spending more time at home, coaching Sophia's team and helping Ezra with his art classes. They were a family, unconventional and scarred, but real. One evening, Ezra found a letter in Lena's old desk, tucked in an envelope with his name on it. It was dated a month before her death, written in her careful hand. Ezra, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're still here. Thank you. I know it's hard, stepping into a life you didn't choose. But you're giving my children something I couldn't, a father who loves them fiercely, and a love that's honest. Tell Marcus to keep playing jazz. Tell Mateo to keep drawing. Tell Sophia to keep climbing. And tell yourself you're enough. You always were. Lena. Ezra folded the letter, tears streaming down his face. He showed it to Marcus that night, and they held each other, grieving and healing in the same breath. Lena's love was still there, woven into their lives, guiding them forward. The next day, Ezra took the kids to the lakefront, where they flew kites under a bright summer sky. Mateo's kite was a dragon, Sophia's a unicorn, and Ezra's was a simple burst of color, like hope taking flight. Marcus joined them, his laughter mingling with theirs, and for the first time, Ezra felt whole. They weren't perfect. There were still nights when Mateo woke up crying for his mom, when Sophia asked questions Ezra didn't know how to answer, when Marcus and Ezra argued over small things. But they faced it together, their love a quiet strength. As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink, Ezra looked at his family. Marcus, Mateo, Sophia knew he'd found his place. 9 years of hidden love had led to this, a life not just shared, but built, with all its mess and beauty.